YouTube link?
Hello, hello. This is Ben Wheeler, and I've got the lovely Anne Lewis, who's here with me to promote her new book, The Warrior of the Kazan. Anne, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely amazing. As always, I am alive, and because of it, it causes psychological distress on my enemies, and that's enough for me.
Don't cause me some psychological distress. I don't know if I can take it right now.
Oh, no, 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 no. Never to one of my guests in front of the audience. I got that abusive magician in the back room thing going, which I'm sure has been the subject of some romances. Beautiful assistant, uh, evil magician, handsome, roguish, mysterious pretty boy magician apprentice. I don't know. Anyway, speaking of roguish, violent, something something science fiction, or is this fantasy? Is this fantasy or science fiction?
This is a combination of both. It's space opera.
Oh, so
Hmm.
what we have here is to save a princess, he must first save himself. The link's down below if this interests you, folks. Dakar Talon, a member of the Kirsten telepathic people, is the new head of security for the royal house of Emun. When the princess, Tazia, is kidnapped, Dakar's investigation leads him to a sinister planet called Earth. But inner demons from his military service torment him, threatening his sanity, integrity, and the success of his mission. Can he bring the princess home before he loses his soul to ever corrupting madness? Read Warrior of the Kazan, the new space opera adventure by former Star Wars author Anne Margaret Lewis.
Yay!
That's you. So tell us about the book, Anne.
Well, it is space opera. You could actually say it has the flavor of like a Edgar Rice Burroughs space opera type story, like Princess of Mars or any of those. In that you got there are advanced people, but they're also kind of primitive in a way. So you have that primitive and advanced combination that you see in an Edgar Rice Burroughs. I just love I love space opera. I mean, I obviously I wrote some Star Wars stuff, so I didn't write their fiction. I wrote nonfiction for them. So I wanted something that wasn't hard science fiction. I wanted character driven stories. I wanted the princesses and the swords and that sort of thing. And that's the kind of feel. Actually, Ben Stevens said it definitely has a feel of an 80s anime, in which I actually agree it does. I would love to turn this into a manga and someday. So maybe someday I'll get the chance to do it because I used to work in comics and I have scripted comics before. So I'd love to go back and script some comics and turn this into a manga because it really has that feel. But it has, the big, strong main character guy with sword going out and struggling with his inner demons, while he's also trying to solve a mission. And there's subplot stories in it. You have the princess's father trying to solve a mystery on back home, and you also have the son of the villain basically he ends up separated from his dad and kind of becomes part of Dakar's the main guy's mission, whether he wants to or not. So it's an interesting, fun story. The people, in my aliens, if you can call them that, are really technically human beings who were cursed and they had to be taken to another world because they were too powerful. So that's how they ended up being the way they are. But they technically are humans.
Nephilim, right?
Yep, Nephilim. That's pretty much what they are.
Fantastic. They're always quite amusing, and if you do them right, you could instill this villainous otherworldliness about them. And honestly, thinking about the manga stuff, with what John Del Raz is cracking open, we'll surely see a whole lot more opportunities for just about all kinds of things. It really is a new and wonderful frontier. Though I must ask, thinking of John Del Rosa, is this one of those things where if I buy this space opera and it's full of swordplay, but then it turns into a romance novel?
Um, it well, it has a love story in it, but I don't think that that's necessarily the main point of the whole thing. The point is really the main characters trying to. It is a story of redemption more than it is a story of romance. Is there a love story in it? Yes, but that is not the main thrust of the story. So it's kind of there. Come on, if it's manga, you gotta have somebody and fall in love with somebody, but it's I wouldn't say that that's the main thrust of the story.
I get
Okay.
Yeah, I getcha. Uh, though I've been burned once before, I still shudder to remember The Stars Entwined, which all of a sudden had characters making doe eyes at each other. I'm like, no, what's going on? Feelings. These guys aren't stoic at all.
Well, I would say that, um, well, because they're people,
Hmm.
I don't know if I write well, I don't write well, Dakar is pretty stoic guy. He but he loves the girl. So but he doesn't know that. A good I mean he knows well, you know it probably as a reader that there's something going on, but he doesn't realize what's going on about until about three-quarters of the way through the book. So it's not a surprise.
Mm, I
Okay.
getcha.
All right. So I'm not trying to like turn a book into a romance that wasn't. Now, does it end up with a kind of happy thing? Yeah, it does. But that's kind of space opera y. you know,
Excellent.
the guy ends up with the girl. I mean, that's kind of. But I don't want to give the ending away. But that's space opera. You should expect that kind of thing in a space.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers. Spoilers. Also, there's this funny Penny Arcade comic where a character is like, "Hey man, Game of Thrones is rounding on the last book George R. R. Martin, have ever wrote." So so it's like, how are you going to protect yourself against spoilers, Tycho? And he walks in and he's lobotomized himself. He's like, spoilers, and it's like he can experience it new all over again. But you definitely have a Princess of Mars and a Star Wars inspiration here. Uh, what else has inspired you for this novel?
um, I would think C.S. Lewis's space trilogy. The idea of how mankind became fallen and the idea of original sin, the idea of um why are these people the way they are, and it's not I mean it's established pretty early in the books. I don't know if it's necessarily a spoiler. It wouldn't be a spoiler, I guess. But what happens with these beings, I kind of was playing with. All right. Trying to the picture of Dorian Gray. You know how in Picture of Dorian Gray, and this is not a spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't read it, when
It's
the
a
guy
hundred years old.
it's 100 years old, so it's not
Yeah,
going to be spoiler alert. But the picture it shows the sins of the guy's soul. Okay, that's what the picture does. Um, Playing with that idea, it's like, what if people if someone became corrupt, became sinful, if those sins showed on their outward person, or somehow they became reflective of corruption itself. And so that's what happens to them when if they have a society that's molded around that's their curse. Okay, they are cursed people. They have been given these extra powers and abilities, and it wasn't by God that they were given. Okay, they're actually the demons messed with them and became these powerful people. However, if they go down a corrupt path, they be turned into like things that look like demons. Okay,
gotcha.
so their whole society is kind of formed around that. And what happens? What would you do to try to avoid turning to corruption and stuff like that. So that is kind of what is happening to Zakar throughout this piece. And I'm not going to tell you why it's happening to him, but it's happening to him because he made a bad choice, and he's starting to, he's fighting this throughout the whole thing. How does he get rid of it? How does it, how do you get rid of that corruption? How do you redeem yourself? And he has to redeem himself in order to truly save her or be with her. So it's a really more of a story of redemption. And but yeah, so the inspirations were like the Picture of Dorian Gray, the C.S. Lewis series, when we're talking about races who were like, I can't remember which book it was in the trilogy, but I think it might have been Paralandra, where he's with a one woman who is like the new Eve on that world. Have you ever read it? Have you ever
Yep.
read this? Okay, so that idea of being completely, what is someone like when they are not fallen, and to have, what are they like when they, these people are fallen beings because they are human beings from they are descended from the people of Noah's time. They're descended from
Hmm.
ancient Sumerians. So, so they were fallen, but they have to battle that fallenness, or else they become these. Will turn into what they even call Nephilim, but they are not called Nephilim themselves. Does that make sense? I
Yeah.
hope it all makes
I
sense.
mean, I hope it makes sense in context. That's what really matters. So how much? So you're got a lot of free will and choices going on here.
Yes.
How are you? How do you use it in the story?
Well, free will is like a two-edged sword for them. So they are different than us in that they have free will, okay, but for them, their law dictates what they can and can't do, and there for them, free will is truly only free when they do the will of God. Okay, so that is what it is for them, and if they make a choice outside that, then they end up becoming corrupt, and they have a way of getting out of that or healing, but it's not easy. So so free will is really a double-edged sword, just as it is for us. Really, we just don't show what that corruption is on our outward person. Or well, technically it can. It depends on what you're doing to yourself.
Right. It's one of those things where I've known that, like normal people, like not Christians, I should say, the damned, until chosen otherwise, oftentimes, like as they accelerate into the sin that they're unable to extricate themselves, they go
Right.
deeper into it. Like one time, I was helping my sister out by driving somebody uh, to um, a bus station, basically, and she was morbidly obese and had all these things, and she was talking about Buddhism and how it was giving peace to her life, and I told her, it's like removing yourself to nothing won't actually solve your problems. But a lot of her problems came from the fact that she wasn't fixing her problems, so that she ate, so that she became morbidly obese. Just as an example.
Hmm.
Other times it's like I used to know of a contractor, and I was told one time that they arrested him for drug possession charges, and they um, found that his veins all up and down his hands were like golden roads because of the heroin he had been injecting, dyeing his skin along his veins, um, so that he basically couldn't hide his addiction anymore.
Wow. Yeah. That I do get into that. I mean, you see it as you become what that you it's hard for you to turn away from the stuff that you accept into yourself, the evil that you embrace. That and i- it's hard to explain, but yeah, you can't you're once you make that choice, your free will you become less free because you are are bound to that. It's kind of like what you were saying with the stress eating and things like that. I totally understand that. One of the things I've been trying to do, and I've not been too successful of it lately because I'm under stress and that's when I tend to eat. But I've been trying to separate myself from not so much from the food, but from the allure of it. Does that make sense? That I want,
Absolutely.
yeah, because that I think that's my bugaboo, you know? So doing for me intermittent fasting makes me not so attached to it or not so obsessed
Mhm.
with it, you know? So separating oneself from that. It's one of my goals is to try to, because I am a stress eater myself, so I totally
Oh,
understand
I
that
know.
mentality. And yeah, so I totally understand the bugaboo. Um, but the idea in the story is that once it's hard for you to, once you're stuck in the mindset of sin, it colors everything that you are doing.
Mhm.
All right. And that is what happens to him. He is a much darker person, having made the choice he made, the bad choice he made. Everything he does after it colors everything he does in
Right.
the book. Yeah, because he is no longer someone who is a warrior for justice or doing the right thing. Because he made this bad choice, now he is becoming more and more abusive. Not so much, well, yeah, if I could say in a way, he's much more uh nasty. He's not, I would say he's necessarily nasty, but he's very dark and very introspective and much more um he's just a little bit darker person,
He's
and
tall, dark, and
he's
troubled,
much
you're
more
saying?
violent. Yeah, he's more violent. He's definitely more violent. There's no question about it. Now that when he makes the, after having made the choice he made. Now, this kind of funny thing, one else I also get into, because the second book, I'm not going to talk much about the second book. I'm in the middle of the second book now, but he misremembers even what he did. Which you can do. You
Right.
purposely trick yourself into, so the revelation is say he doesn't quite remember it exactly the way he did it. So and that's revealed to him in the second. But this is exactly what you did. And he's like, oh, that's even worse. So because
Beautiful.
you can even lie to yourself on what the sin was that you committed. You know what
Of
I'm saying?
course.
So that's one of the things I get into is the nature of sin and how it can really truly affect your perception of the world and your behavior going forward. It colors what you become. So
Lying to yourself prevents, much good, being done, uh, or to self-improvement and stuff like that. It's the biggest problem with gammas and other things like that because it's like you could fix yourself, you could become something more, but then it's like, nah, man, just tell yourself you're fine. It's your vices are not vices at all. The slippery slope isn't real.
are we looking at our people in the chat?
Oh yeah, that's me and Wooly Ram, regular.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's nice. Great guy.
Hi there.
I always keep an eye out, for what they're commenting. So what inspired you to choose the cover you did?
I wanted it to be, I don't know if our person who's listening can see the cover, but I wanted it to be something that's space opera y, um,
Hmm.
which is kind of, it has a portal in it, but people are like, so is there portals in this book? No, there's no portals in this book. It's kind of more to give the feel of space opera, to see that, to show that it's because I have a figure on it. I wanted the figure of the main character,
Hmm.
with his badass sword. So people see it's a big badass guy with a big badass sword. I wanted that, but if I just put him in a land background, people would not see space opera. So when I was working with the designer on this, I said we got to have to really say space in this, and so he came up with a spacey background with these really striking colors and meant to kind of evoke. this is a space opera. And looking at other space operas covers, it kind of fits in with that genre. So I still have the cool character. He's
Mhm.
and it is okay, it's supposed to be the main character. I don't know that he totally matches my idea of it because I think mine's more of a Jason Momoa size, more of that size guy. Because this guy doesn't look as big as the Jason Momoa size guy, but I think he's kind of in the same realm. Because I mean, the reason it's kind of funny because I didn't think of Jason Momoa initially. My friend pointed him out to me and said, he could play your character, and I'm like, yeah, you're probably right, because he's not white, and that's one thing I kind of tried to say in the book is none of the characters are truly they're not like Caucasians. They're kind of Middle Eastern mix. Because they're Sumerians, and Sumerians they were actually a Middle Eastern mix. They weren't quite Semitic. They weren't like they weren't necessarily Arabs, but they and you also had some mix from the Caucasus Mountains too in there. So you have a variety, but they were not necessarily what I would say Caucasian. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
what we understand as Caucasian, they were probably more Caucasian in the truest sense of Caucasian. Does that make sense too?
Yeah.
Because yeah, because the
Because the
Caucasus Mountains.
Caucasians are, yeah, a mountain range and all that jazz. And if the Bible timeline that the Bishop Usher put out is correct, they would essentially be just at the beginning of the genetic diaspora. God put the earth under to create all the races
Mhm.
through the families of Noah. If you take the Bible literally, like myself, but I don't take his years literally. That's 7,000 years, and it's like we know that, like, based on weather patterns, that the Sphinx has been around at least 12,000. So it's like, It also doesn't help that the Jews were very not very specific when it came to, and he begat him, when in actuality it's his like great grandfather or some nonsense like that. But really, he was his spiritual successor, so it counts. And it's like, thank you.
And not only that, the years are kind of strange in that they say, well, this person lived about 400 years. It's like, well, no, their concept of year was different. So yeah, so the actual literal years, it might be real hard to actually say that those are actually 365 days. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So in fact, I think like if you, I don't know if it's in the reigns of the Sumerian kings, they show how many years that the Sumerian kings reigned, and some of them are like really astronomical amount of time. I'm like, no, that's because their sense of a year was shorter, much shorter,
But
or
then that all
their
only
cycle. Yeah, and if you think about it, because they don't have seasons as we'd have them here in America, in the northern United States or wherever we are. They didn't have they may have had some winter and stuff like that, but I don't know if they necessarily had changing seasons. Their seasonal change was not as variant. Does that make sense?
yeah, sure. I mean, if we
Okay,
went
so
by the seasons, I'd be a good 300 years old now.
yeah. So they might have thought those. I mean, they might have measured it by the seasonal, rotation, whatever. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm just kind of looking at our thing and seeing what Woolly Ram says here. Ah. Wow, nowadays you'd call them Persian. Yeah, you could. You could say they're Persian. And you'll also see in the book, I do use some Sumerian root words for certain things like their royal names are I kind of tried I took Sumerian. I kind of pulled a little bit of a Tolkien, but I'm not as good as he is. In terms of creating language. I The Sumerian roots I used, but I messed with them a little bit to show a little bit continental shift, like the language has changed. So there's that, and also you got a little combination of Hebrew there because the angel. I kind of say that there's an angel that kind of guards them, and he's the one that gives them their name, and he's saying, "I'm naming you in the language that God has chosen." So they are named Emanim, which is from a more of a Hebrew root with a Hebrew ending. And so those Hebrew endings and pluralizations and things like that are used in the book. So
Hmm.
so you got a little Hebrew mixed with a little Sumerian. It's all. Middle Eastern mishmash. It was fun.
Semitic languages and all that
Semitic,
good stuff.
so it was fun.
Mm.
So
So, is this concurrent to the modern world, or
it
before or
is.
after it?
It's going on, and okay, yeah, it starts now.
Ah,
It's in our present day. At least the books actually starts 15 years before, 15 to 17 years before our current day, because at the very beginning of it, we have a little shot of Zakar historically as a 14-year-old boy, meaning Tazia, who's only 7. So they're young at the very beginning of the book, and then in the very next chapter we jump forward 15 years, so you see
mhm.
how he changes. So yes, it's technically current day. um at the very end of the book, I included the short story, which is the prequel short story that takes place at the time of Noah. So you get it's kind of like the origin story for the people, and
I gotcha.
and so that's at the end of the book. It's included. I thought I'd include it here, and it's kind of like a promotional thing for the Planetary series, because it actually is going to appear in Luna too. So it's going to appear in both places.
So, considering that these Nephilim or potential Nephilim are more connected to the spiritual world, and such that their evil is more directly connected to their outside looking and desires more than we are bound to today, how do you do go when how did you go about the world building?
Oh gosh, the world building. It kind of, oh gosh. Um, I've had this world in my head for a while, actually, and started adding things on as I went, because I could see it in my head. I could see the way these people are. Um, when I think about it, they are much more. Well, the first of all, the angel that I've picked, that actually they have a guardian that kind of is like a principality. Do you know the levels
Hmm.
of angels? You know the angel levels of angels, principality, and that he has to be there with them to make sure that they don't get out of control.
Mm,
uh, and because the angel I chose is a Raquel, which is like a guardian of earth, sort of, and he's from the book of Enoch. Actually, that angel appears in the book of Enoch. He's one of the watchers, who were there during the time of Noah. um, he is much more, he taught humanity agrarian skills,
mhm,
so carrying, growing plants and taking care of animals and things like that. Because that's his bugaboo, I decided to make this much more, there's a sense of solar punk about it. So I'm not saying it's totally enviro thing, but it's much more of agrarian society than, and yet,
mhm,
in fact, all of their plants, all their ships are plant based. um there's a whole lot of, they grow plants within their buildings, to give more oxygen within the buildings, things like that. So it's much more, so I automatically saw it as, because I have this agrarian angel, that everything is going to be very based in that. I'm not trying to be like hyper environmentalist here. I'm not, but they aren't necessarily that way. They're just naturally focused that direction. You also have, because it is an agrarian society, it's going to be much more of a feudal system than we have here. So it isn't, they don't necessarily have democracy as we understand it, in terms of,
mhm.
so it is, but I had to say I'm going with feudalism, guys. Sorry. um they
Oh,
do have,
feudalism works.
feudalism works, and but they do have a law making body where there is some representatives that help make laws. So, but those people are not elected; they are appointed to be leaders. of their particular areas to represent them and create overarching laws. Um, in fact, one of those guys gets in trouble in the book. So, um,
Mhm.
uh, what else helped me make it? So again, it kind of started really with that angel, really, and creating that society with that. Everything is kind of, and also if you have people who are telepaths, which they are, how would that change and affect technology? Um, so it had to do with their spiritual ability. Their ability is they're far more okay. How am I trying to say this? When they originally were created or cursed, the idea that the demons brought to them is that we are going to return to you what Adam lost. All right. And when he fell, that's we're going to return that to you. Everything but immortality, which we can't do. So that's what they tried. Because Adam could walk with God and speak with him, right? Adam could
Mhm.
do a lot of things to. So in my idea of Adam is that he is the more perfect human being. He's what we should be. All right. Immortal, able to converse with God and be physical in the flesh. There's an ability to grow animals and or grow raise animals and speak with animals and control animals in a different way that we do, things like that, plants too. So they're kind of almost like the idea of this. So if they are like that to a certain extent, and they're not 100% what Adam would be, because obviously not, because they are fallen,
Mhm.
and because demons lie.
Mhm.
All right, um so if they are like that, how does that affect the technology? So it kind of came from the angel, and also that curse that they have. If they are like this, people, what is their society going to be like? So it kind of grew out of them, and that whole idea of this spiritual powers that they have. They also their how their temple works and everything else like that. When they go in to pray, what happens with them that is different than what we would. Sometimes we go to church, we don't necessarily always feel the presence of God. You know what I'm saying? We don't always,
Mhm.
but they do. As soon as they step into that temple, they can feel, they know he's there, and they know what he's speaking to them. All right. So
Right.
yeah, so it may sound really silly that someone who can actually speak to God could make up and screw up, but yes, they can, because we see that happening all the time in Scripture. With our,
Right.
yeah, doesn't matter if they can hear him or not, or speak to him or not, or whatever. Even Moses messed up. So, right?
And the consequences weren't removed from him.
No,
Wooly Ram is asking how to spell Arakiel.
Arakiel, Araqueil. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Hold on a second. I got to type it myself. let me
Feel
let me
free to
type it out.
use
I guess.
chat.
Okay, Araquiel. Sorry, I will type it in there for him. How do I type it? How do I type it? Um, say something. Uh, Oops, I hid the show chat. I'm trying. I'm clicking around here so I could type it in.
No, just
Create. Yeah.
click on say something and then
Oh shoot.
it's all right. I'll just type it in there for you. We're good. So, no, I don't know the Hebrew spelling.
That is the way I saw it. Araquiel, and that's how I'd spell it. But that's how I saw it written.
Mm,
See,
hmm.
hold on a second here. See if I could see. Yeah, actually, the first link up is the Cult World. I really Googled him for you. The Hex Wiki. Halo Alpha. Does the name Oracle mean? Uh, it should be in here. If you spell that, it should come up there, because I see a bunch of things, but I don't see it necessarily as okay. So Barwin says I came in like a Rekiel. It's funny. All right. So, what are the questions you got for me, Ben?
Oh, I was just looking through a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
So we've gone through your inspirations, your cover, your various little bits here and there. Tell us about the side characters. You said you had somebody dragged along despite their desires otherwise?
Yes. Saul. His name is Saul. Well, actually, he calls himself Saul. He or his dad. It's a long story. He is the son of the villain. The villain is actually the brother of the king. Okay,
Hmm.
in the story. Okay, which you always got king's brothers. They're always going off on nuts. I don't know what it is. If you look at Shakespeare, they do it all the time. So, but yeah. So Saul is he's raised in New York. And he is only about, I guess, in our years, he's about 20 years old. When he gets taken to their planet, ultimately, he finds out he's really only 17 in their years. He goes, "Oh man, I got to go through this again." It's like, dude, I'm the teenager again. Ah. Anyway, so he's 20. So you've got this like almost this young person, goofy American kid. So he's kind of he makes snarky comments. He is the um American in the kind. I mean, you have other humans who are involved here. He doesn't really encounter them until later. So you get the human outlook on this culture from him because he was raised on Earth.
Right.
His dad is hiding out on Earth, or um and so he was raised there. And he has this relationship with his first time he meets Dakar like, so he smashes his head into the wall. Punches it, he throws him against the wall, poor kid. And so he's terrified of him. And yeah, Dakar's not necessarily nice to him through this entire, because he thinks he's a traitor because he was raised on Earth, and he's the son of the bad guy. But they don't know. The king does not know that Saul even exists. He doesn't even know that he was even born. So
Classic.
yeah. So ultimately, he ends up kind of making peace with our main character. Um, kind of.
Kind of.
Kind. I don't want to necessarily spoil it for him, but he's kind of goofy. He's funny. He makes the one-liner comments, and he's a funny kid. He's a funny kid, but he gets the rude awakening of seeing, people disemboweled in front of him and things like that. He's like, "Oh, this is
I've seen
not
a
where I
lot of
want to
crazy
be."
stuff in New York, but
Yeah.
this is a little bit weird.
This is a little weird. Well, he actually grew in upstate New York, so he's not really a tough New Yorker. He's like his dad, because they have mental powers, they can manipulate people. So his dad actually amassed a bit of a fortune here on Earth. So his dad's rich. So he's
Hmm.
not the New Yorker from the streets of New York. He's a New Yorker who's kind of like hoity-toity. He's not used to rough and tumble stuff.
Mm,
It's not so. And he's kind of wimpy, but he'll learn better soon. He'll learn better.
of
So he's
course.
he's cute. He's a cute kid. Um, and the other side character is the king himself, Marish, and you get to see him struggle. Well, he tries to figure out who betrayed him and had his daughter kidnapped, and so he's kind of like the guy solving the mystery, and you get to see him in being the tough king that he is. See, he's pretty intense guy. Very sensitive guy though. I like him a lot. I don't know, Ben, when you write books, do you try to see people cast as your characters?
No,
No, you don't actually
no,
try to cast your show in
no.
your head. I do. I cast my show in my
Uh,
head. So I've gone several casts in my head. So
I mean,
uh,
don't get me wrong. I'm like Keanu Reeves's hair, Liam Neeson's eye. Sometimes when I feel like the need for it, I go for it. But honestly, I view it more as sort of like a character design dossier in my head.
mhm.
Uh, so it's like with that one. serial I was writing that I'll get back to eventually. So for our critique group, don't you worry. I'm just
I hope
thinking
so.
of rewriting a chapter, an entire chapter of it. Oh, but like for the Barracuda Bones, I had the idea of a sort of like a mix between the Imperial flight suit, Darth Vader suit, and a stormtrooper outfit that you'd have for a group that sort of looks evil, looks more evil than it is, because he's still the equivalent of a special ops soldier, special ops flight guy,
Mhm.
featherhead, if you will. So I have specific ideas on how everything should look. Though that did run into trouble with my cover artist, uh, who I gave the specific documents to, and then it turned out nothing like it. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to do this and that and this and that. And then she ghosted me for a year and got it done. And it's like, yep, all right, this is fine. And then she's like, be grateful I'm not charging you for it. I'm like, I charge people, I give money to people to read my work and improve it. This isn't you're this somebody's OC who they paid you to draw. This is a cover. It's a professional work. But then I'm like, you know what? It's all right. It's all right. I just kind of laid there until I wasn't angry about it anymore. Because it was very frustrating. Because she didn't seem to get that delaying a completely finished book and product for a year uh, was frustrating. What's weird is that she went through some personal tragedy, but the novel is all about overcoming that personal tragedy, the death of a mother, and so on and so forth. So it's I've taken amusement in the fact that her reaction to things is ironic. She needed to read the book. Um, just a second. Woolly Ram, the Book of Enoch is not in Hebrew. It is part of the Catholic Apocrypha. Um, and it's
It
as
it's an
such,
apocryphal book, period. No
yes,
matter it doesn't matter which way you look at it. I think, yeah, it's an apocryphal book even to us, I believe.
there's good evidence that it's used for a bunch of Gnostic BS and all that jazz, but you know it's in there for Catholics. I don't know whether the Orthodox have it in there.
It's not really in our canon. Enoch is not in the canon.
Really, I thought it was in
No.
the Apocrypha.
No. Uh
What's in the Apocrypha then? So,
it's an apocryphal book, but it's not in our apocrypha, period.
oh,
And it's from the antediluvian period, but yeah, hold on a second here. I'm just looking. I want to make sure here. Because Enoch is in the book of Genesis. These apocryphal books are not, I don't think it's part of our canon. I'd have to double check. I don't
well,
think it
no,
is.
not part of the canon. But what I'm saying is, if
Yeah, the
you
Catholic canon, I don't think it is.
right, but what I'm trying to say is that if you buy a Catholic Bible, there's a good chance that they'll include the apocryphal books. Is all I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't know whether yours has it or not, but I've seen it in a bunch of them. But that's different, I guess. I don't know. Do what the Mormons have an opinion on it? Hold on a second. Oh, it was very boring. I don't know why they had it in here. It's like the Church of the Latter Day Saints. I'm like, ooh, and then they're like, no, they don't have it. Oh, oh, okay, thank you for telling us.
We include hold on a second here. I'm gonna just double check here. No, 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 no. Where's that Bible? Books of the Bible. Hold on a second here. Uh I'm just double checking what we have that you would not. We don't have Enoch in our Bible,
Ah,
even what you guys call the Apocrypha. Those additional 7 books, Enoch is not one of them.
so wait, it's the two books of the Maccabees,
Right.
Tobit.
Sir Tobit, Sirach. Um. Is it Lamentation? No. Uh. Oh, we have an extended Esther. Judith. But yeah, Enoch is definitely not one of them.
Mm.
Sirach, Sirach, you wouldn't have, I don't think. Um,
No, I don't.
and the
We
Book of
we
Wisdom, the Book
yeah,
of Wisdom, and Sirach. So
we don't.
yeah, yeah, the Book of Enoch isn't even an apocryphal book even to us. We don't have
Mm,
it's not part of our canon. However, in some of the Eastern Rite churches, they do in some of the Eastern churches like the Armenian church, Ethiopian church, the Coptics church, they some of them have that as part of their canon. It's not part of the Roman Catholic Church's canon. So just so you know, the
I got you.
Baha'is, yeah. So yeah, some of them got it, some of them don't. It's a little confusing there, but yeah,
Right. I'm
yeah.
looking
It's,
at
it's
it, and
not
it's
part
like
of our 7 books.
I'm looking at it, and it says like the Book of Enoch, the most complete one, comes from the Ethiopian manuscripts, because as weird as it sounds, like the Ethiopians had a very strong Christian presence since basically the beginning,
Yes.
and had their own thing most of the time. So that's interesting. It might be something. Well, it's not important. It's just interesting to me.
Oh, here it is. I got the list here. Tobit, Judith, First and Second Maccabees, Wisdom, because Wisdom of Solomon, Wisdom of Sirach. So they call one Wisdom and call one called Sirach. Baruch, and additions to Esther.
Mm,
Those are the ones that we have. The Deuterocanon, the other books that we have that are not in the Protestant Bible or that are called the Apocrypha. Okay.
mm,
So those are the ones. Those are the ones. And in Enoch, I knew Enoch was not part of our legitimate canon. I knew that some of the Eastern churches had it as part of theirs, but it
yeah.
is not part of the Roman Catholic Bible. Anyway, so
And
all
honestly,
right.
I've known so many different types of Christians from different denominations and all that good stuff that it doesn't surprise me at all that I've mistaken one for the other. Um,
Sorry, I think my head's. I just sort of sat back and I realized my head was being cut off in the video. It's like,
it's
sorry,
it's
you
all
missed
right.
my face.
There's no one who's going to come back here and edit it or anything like that. Um, yeah, no, it's interesting stuff. Um, though I don't really trust it for doctrine. So don't if you go searching for it, don't don't take it too seriously. Considering that the best we can do to trace it back is to say that it's from Ethiopian Bibles from very long ago, and
Yes.
occasionally quoted by obscure people who may or may not have been Gnostics, which was a big heresy that we're still
Oh yeah.
dealing with today.
Yeah. I try not to. I saw it as a source material for being creative. I just certainly didn't take it theologically accurate.
Oh, thank goodness. Uh, I like being theologically accurate. I can't find myself ever playing around with it. Um, Partially because I've just like lived it basically all my life, but also I don't have an imagination that goes religiously, I guess I'll say. Though don't get me
I
wrong,
wanna be
I'll have like
theologically I wanna be theologically accurate, but when I'm looking at the Book of Enoch, I don't sit there and take that as theologically accurate. I just saw that.
ah
I saw the name is interesting, and what his job was as a watcher was interesting, and so I kinda
hmm
took it as like a historical source saying, well, that's kind of a creative thing I could work with. It's not necessarily that I saw that whole Bible that whole book is inspired because I knew it was not. So theologically, my book, I try to be as theologically accurate as possible, especially when I'm playing with angels. I try to, for me, I really tried to make my angel behave in the way that St. Thomas Aquinas really defined angels to behave.
hmm
So he is terrifying.
Thomas
Yeah.
Aquinas.
No, 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 not no. The angel is. Um,
Ah,
Angels, we're frightened. Angels frighten us. They can be scary. Because they are so much. They're powerful, more powerful than us. And there's a sense of awe that they bring with them, or at least I would hope so. Um,
mm,
so when I tried to create an angel, I tried to. He also does not know anything that God does not want him to know. So he's not, angels in themselves are not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not omnipotent or or what's the word? When their brain knows everything. What does it
Yeah,
mean? What's that
omniscient.
word? Omniscient. That's right. They are not omniscient. They don't know everything. They only know everything in terms of what God allows them to know. And
Right.
everything they do is within the will of God. So, whatever they're doing is, so that's a really fun thing to play with in my story, is that the reason why they have chance to discover and learn and grow just like human beings do, because they are essentially human beings. They gotta learn and grow and experiment and do things on their own. The angel doesn't give them everything. The reason why they're allowed to do that is because the angel himself does not know everything. Does that
I
make sense?
getcha.
Okay. So, however, he certainly knows a lot more than they do, and he's a lot more wise than they are. Now they can learn to a certain extent and know what to ask Oracle for, and he actually will help them in certain ways. So, and that's really a fun little section in the book where there's a sense of, we here as human beings have to have a sense of science in order to learn about the world and explore the world as we have it. This people has science in that they have a body of knowledge. That's what science really technically is defined as. So there's a fun little argument that goes on about where you got someone who's much more of a secular person who's grounded in science, who does not understand the way that her people think, and yet she says, and yet my people are here with a spaceship, so what do you got to say? Because she's saying is she's sitting there talking to this person is expecting her, when she's saying I'm from another world, she's expecting spaceships and Star Trek and things like that, and she's saying, talking about angels, and she goes, wait a minute. Yeah. So she goes, I was expecting science. He goes, what do you mean? It's like really kind of a clash of, you know, really faith and science. And actually, I think it comes down to faith and science are not antithetical with each other. They do work together. We still have to explore the world and learn from it. And logic and reason are part of faith, really.
Absolutely.
So there's a statement on faith in there, is that logic and reason work together. And faith and reason work together. Fides et ratio, as John Paul II wrote. So it was fun. That was a fun part to the whole thing, to do the little take on science and faith in the middle there.
Nothing worse than a gamma showing up and going, "Hey, prayer it won't work, but science will." It's like,
Mm.
ugh. It's like, "Ugh, get away
Well, we
from
are
me."
bigger than it. And actually, Chesterton himself would say, it's so funny how how limiting some people can be. That the world is, they don't want to see the world bigger than it is.
Mhm.
That there is a world outside of this world that's bigger than that, and you have to be open-minded enough to see that, or to understand that, and they so limit themselves when they don't see that. So it's a fun little thing.
Oh, yes. It's one of those things where you can only really respond is with the world is much bigger than you think it is. Um, and it's from the same place. That means that I can study writing as sculptors could study sculpture in the human form and make their notes and do their Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci sort of thing. And if it could not be studied, then it would only be dependent on the muses, and I'm sure that the quality would be much diminished, which is such a unfortunate thing. Willie Ram says, I rather like Vox's tripartite classification in with method, knowledge, and the practice of science. And he
Hmm.
also says that prayer is frightfully effective, speaking from personal experience.
And I can speak from that too.
Absolutely.
Oh boy, you be careful what you ask for. 'Cause sometimes you'll get it in spades. Oh,
Oh,
boy.
yes. Never ask unless you're ready for it, never ask for patience,
Oh,
but never ask for wisdom, because you will receive it, and once you are very patient and once you are very wise, you'll realize it's it's like, it's worth it in the sense of that you don't do stupid things as much anymore, but it's also not worth it in the sense of what you had to go through. Because with much wisdom comes sadness, and with much patience comes a sort of energy.
yeah. Yeah. I was one of the I actually because I was really when I was young little girl, gosh, I think it was like 8 or 10 years old. I loved that story of Solomon asking for wisdom. I loved that story. And so I actually prayed. I said, I want wisdom. Guess what? I don't know if I'm necessarily the wisest person in the universe. I know I did some dumb things, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. By you get so sad by things because
Hmm.
you see more than you really want to see. It's yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna say I'm necessarily the wisest person in the world, but yeah,
That itself would be unwisdom. It's
yeah.
one of those things. It's like, I'm so humble.
Mm,
Are you? It's like
no.
those old fail compilations. What you say? And it's like all those things.
There was a gosh, it's actually in the screw tape letters how that if you want a particular if you say that you have that virtue, you no longer have it's kind of like the humility. If you say
Hmm.
I'm being so humble, well, you're not. If you think that, and you think that you're not, you know, I love the screw tape letters. Have you read the screw tape letters?
Of course,
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I
it's a lot of fun to read, and it opens up a lot of things to understanding.
actually Focus on the Family did a recording of it with Andy Circus, I
I've
think.
seen yes,
Yeah, yeah, isn't that great? That is a
it's an
great
amazing one,
it's
amazing.
amazing. Oh my gosh. My son and I listened to it together in driving back and forth to school. And I said, "This is the same guy who did Gollum. Isn't he awesome?" He's great. That's probably one of the best interpretations I've heard of it. Even better, I think even gosh, who is it? One of the Monty Python guys. Gosh, trying to think of which one who plays the Black
John
Knight.
Cleese,
John Cleese did one too. Yeah,
yes, he did.
yeah, so
Now, there's a man who's ever been close to salvation, but has not touched it, as far as I can see.
yeah, he
But
needs
yeah, that's its own thing, though. One should always be careful with what you're doing. One time when I was younger and more ferocious and mad, I guess I say, this one guy, he and I were having um, beef essentially, where he was saying I was nosy and a few other things, but I was working on a uh, condo development, and he was basically my only connection to the boss, but he was not like my boss. He was just kind of around, and it's like I said he was going into surgery, and I said, "Well, I'll pray for you." And he said, "Oh, I don't want the prayers of a boy." And I said, "The Lord rebuke you for that." And basically, everything went wrong without taking his life that could go wrong. And I had a very peaceful last month of service at the condominium, which is how it works. Which of course, you got to be careful with that stuff. If you believe God is real, truly do, you have to accept those things, no matter where it comes from. Otherwise, uh, you never know what sort of lesson might be taught. Uh, whether something happened or something didn't happen, or whether he regretted not having that prayer. Though I did pray for him anyway, because it's our relationship to God that matters, not what somebody asks for. If
Mhm.
some atheist goes, "I don't want you to pray for me. I don't believe in him." Well, God believes in you, so
Yeah. What's it gonna hurt?
their pride or
What's it gonna
ego.
hurt? Really, honestly, what's it gonna hurt? If it doesn't do anything, why does it hurt you?
Well, their ego is so
Ah,
tender.
I don't understand. Oh, but I say I have wonderful friends who are not necessarily believers, and I love them just as much. And so far, none of them have said that to me. So, but I care. I always care for pray for them anyway. Because
Of
they're my friends,
course.
and I love them. I love them dearly. So, it's
Wooly
just the way
Ram
it is.
reminds
Yeah.
us all that we are commanded to pray for our enemies, and that is a true thing.
Even
I
our
do.
friends, though, too. I mean, not so much our enemies, too. I
Oh,
mean,
we should already be praying
yeah,
for our
for our
friends.
friends, absolutely. But yeah, but some of our friends, I mean, we used to pray for our enemies. Absolutely pray for our enemies and those who persecute you. Absolutely.
Oh yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's it's one of those things where it's frustrating, because I'm friends with John Del Raz, and I've defended him, but it cost me various people who I call feisty baby boomers, uh, who don't seem to understand the same thing, that we're all in this together. But you share the wrong meme, and it's all over. But fortunately, they seem to be moving over to being angry on John's blog, which remains as hilarious as it ever is. No point in striking own goals for perceived slights. The points do add up after all.
Well, John is certainly, he's an interesting fellow. I admire him, and I always worry about him too. Um, Sometimes I'm like, "Why are you doing this, John? I don't understand. I really don't." But I owe him a lot because he actually read the first 3 chapters of my book and said, "Jason, you should publish this." And
Nice.
yeah, and so I owe him that. I think it's very sweet of him that he took that on him, to do that. He didn't have to. So,
Hmm.
say what you will about John. He's certainly not perfect. He does some things that certainly torque a lot of people off. But I sit there and he makes me scratch my head sometimes and make me wonder. But um, but I think he's got at the very root of it. I think he's got a good heart, and I don't know that everybody sees that. I wish that everybody did. You know.
Oh yes. It's Wooly Ram says right wing Christian circular shooting lines are immensely dismaying. I'm not worried about it in about 20 years. In 20 years, it's not going to be a problem. And it's like I wish all these guys the best, but I don't understand it personally, because unless if you have declared you're on my side, I will never make the first move consciously. Um, but it is what it is. It's not going to be a problem in 20 years, because it'll get worse. And praise God, it's going to get worse. Um, Hopefully, though, we'll have enough taken care of for myself and others, that it won't be so bad. Um, Especially with all the stuff that Vox Day is doing. I'm waiting for him to open up unauthorized a bit more, um, so I can get on that and stream on unauthorized, which is full of people like us, um, in one nice little place. It'd be great. But that's the future to dream towards. And because I've been so busy, I've neglected my video making a bit more than I should have. However, I'm going to get back on it. I'm going to do some videos at LibertyCon. Um, Unfortunately, I don't have proper recording equipment, so I'm going to have to see if I can record any panels on my phone, um, which will be of terrible quality, but hopefully you can hear it and understand it, um, as well as maybe stream while I'm there. Well, it's been an hour, Anne, and it's been a
Yeah.
lovely hour indeed. Do you have any final words or promotional things for us?
Just check out Warrior the Kazan. It's on Amazon right now. And actually, believe it or not, I have a freebie promotion going on for the ARC. I don't know if I should post it here because it's only going to be good until the end of June. I could. I don't know where I could post it here. Hold on a second if I can find the.
If you posted on the chat bar on the side, um, I can post it into the chat log.
Okay, hang on a second
Yes.
here.
It is set up so that those who are not myself or an admin or so um, uh, cannot post links.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the proper links here. Eh.
Every
Once I can
time.
find once I yeah, every time I need them, they are not right at my hand, right at my fingertips. So let me
Mm.
scrolling down, scrolling here. There it is. Okay, there it is. I got them. Ta-da! No, the hard part is for some reason, and this is just a technical issue. Okay,
Yes.
in the YouTube thing, when I roll my mouse over where it says "say something," it says "create a channel to join the chat." Do I need
Ah, you don't have an account.
For some reason I don't have an account to do it. So what I will do is I will message you on Facebook and you could stick it in there for me. Do you want
However
to do
you
that for
like.
me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. These are two promotions that are going on until the end of June where you can get a free arc of my book. So
What I'm planning on doing for the Jasper Silver book, I've written in a novella that I'm going to spread around with one of the far more interesting characters on it, a Templar, because I'm saying that Earth has stayed Roman Catholic while Protestants have gone into space, uh, because the book is of a frayed Protestant spirit. But he
he's like,
he
to the listeners, I have to understand, I'm Catholic, so that's why he's picking on me.
Oh, I pick on everybody. Uh, I find more and more as I grow older that bullying is necessary,
Mhm.
if only to make sure that people are like not on their toes, but it's like, oh, that skin always needs to be a bit thick. Um, see Kyle, Whole Foods Market. See Kyle. I don't know. But basically, it's him going on a knights errant adventure inspired by the Mabinogion, um, with a pair of orphan girls who, inadvertently almost kill him and then feel real bad about it. Which I'm enjoying the conceit. But that's how I'm gonna be doing similar to you is what I'm trying to say.
Oh.
I don't know why it took me so long to say it in a roundabout way. Partially because I'm fatigued. I drove for I had a friend drive, but I was out for I want to say 15 hours yesterday. It's like, ooh. But no, I'm looking forward to your release. I've got books and books and books to read. And even though I don't really view ourselves as being in a golden age yet, I'm pretty sure we're going to get there someday soon.
Yay! Hope
Well,
so.
Anne, it's
All
been
right.
a pleasure. Have
All
you
right.
enjoyed your time with us today?
Oh, it's been a wonderful time. Thank you so
Excellent.
much, Ben, for having me. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.